Hi everyone. Yeah, I think it's good that we can actually learn this Lutheran class together, and I learned so much about Lutheranism. So the book review that I am doing is World Ablaze. Now I was when I was um, told to do a book review, I went. I happened to be at the library. So I was like public library, and then I was yeah, maybe instead of buying, right, we can actually find a book here. Then I don't need to buy. Okay. So what happened is I found this book called World Ablaze at the public library. So if you all are interested, don't need to buy. Can actually go library and borrow. Okay. So to begin, the starting of this stage, right, or the start of the book is very interesting. Just the first page, you will see that it's very witty and appealing because it talks about two young travelers, hungry and thirsty, and then they are looking for Martin Luther actually. But then they met Martin Luther, but they didn't recognize him because Martin Luther was disguised himself as a Hebrew reading knight. So Craig Harline, which is a very good storyteller, he wants to focus this whole book, right, on Luther's years from 1517 to 1522. Um, so it's actually a very interesting book because even if you have no knowledge about the Reformation and any of that, this book does um, provide you with a basic introduction of it. So it's very entertaining, filled with sarcasm, because as you we look at the focus point, right, is really between where Martin Luther, his life, when he actually nailed the 95 theses on the church door of Wittenberg, to date of Worms, to his exile at Wartburg and his return to Wittenberg in the spring of 1522. um, and then there's a chapter that summarizes his life before this time, and a chapter summarizing what happens after his death. So this author, right, he summarizes a gist of what Luther wrote and what he believed during this period. And of course, the focus was also on the political situation surrounding Luther. And then all these details of many various meetings that Luther went, um, and some biographies about some major players like Frederick the Wise and Pope. So this book is not really about a theological issue of why did Luther believe what he believed, but rather how the ideas has impacted. The author wrote this for the just um, and any average person. He wants to inject humor into this very serious uh, 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 discussion and topic, right? But um, overall, is a very enjoyable book. Okay. Um, so with a lot of okay, so the title, right? The title is from this book, World Ablaze. It comes from a letter from Luther to the Pope Leo in early 1518, where the friar, which Martin Luther proclaims, "Lo, this is the fire with which they complain. All the world is now ablaze." So um, this historian, right, which is Craig Carline, he 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 is he's he want to write more about Martin Luther, and is how is he's setting this world ablaze with a righteous heat. Okay, so for many of us who reads it, we are aware of Luther's rejection of Rome, the tension and doubt, and sometimes it becomes like as if Martin Luther was very boastful and he was very assertive. But Harline, he dramatized this historical record, so we can witness a very uh, verified kind of events that happen. And um, he's he did not he tried to like go past the understanding of the power plays and some of the and make the very vague, very abstract ideas, right, more vivid and more clearer and concrete. Yeah. So this range that he took, right, which is so-called his the first few years of fame, in the sense that Martin Luther's years of fame is meant for those who know the name of Luther but don't know why is Luther so important, right? And then he talks about his formative stages of a law student, and how he was so afraid of um his soul. Yeah. So um he was so afraid that he went into the strictest order of the Augustinian order, the only one followed by a pope, and um obsessed with the need to place his faith first, and to claim justification by grace alone, and how it redeems a believer, and not by any acquiring any merit by good works. So Luther insists on this scripture over Catholics' teaching and tradition. So Harline, which is the author, documents uh, so how this happened, and how Luther criticized the sales um, pitch of targeting the desperate, and that when in the end abused the system of indulgences, and thus it many times it enriched the opponent kind of friars, uh, such that the Dominicans who claimed that a clink of the coin in the box, that the suffering soul from would uh, um, will from purgatory will spring to heaven, and then how he clashed with the primacy of the the papacy, because that's how they profit from the donations from all these, having the departed loved ones as well as themselves, and then um, how they can straight away go to heaven. Now Luther denies how this how this in this way can the wages of sin be paid off lah. So the with Harlan's presentation, he interprets Luther's gradual um, like disengagement with this tainted system, right? How it's been so unscriptural, and becomes a very loophole to ransom souls. So Luther lobbied with the church, and how to change and look for, in terms of politics, in terms of this ecclesiastical kind of like um, uh, uh, environment, is a very tricky place to go to. Um, so the Holy Roman Empire, which is German speaking yeah, um, uh, so this he hated this they hated this how a way of having the grassroots support for this young priest, right? Who at first he was quite disinterested in his, just a it's just a uh, 95 theses that he wanted to wrote, but then that was not his intention to go against the Roman Empire. Yeah. So this Heinlein, which is the author, he reminds us how public notice of an academic disputation, right? Although it's just a very normal university routine, but uh, initially it's supposed to be like, yeah, nobody will actually show up because it was a cancelled event at All Hallows Eve, which is like the, today we understand it as a Halloween day, right? Yeah, 1517. However, this particular preacher, which is Martin Luther, he knows that All Saints Day will attract pilgrims, even if um, many right will not be bothered by his arguments and all that. But I think uh, it was a a good strategy as well. Because at that time, there was printing trade was going on. There was because they were changing out indulgences. Uh, they translating sermon into vernacular, the language that they use. So they were having so Luther's fate, right? He wanted to tease Rome. He was tangled with the pleasure of this, the pride of the people, the papacy. He says, I have provoked all the people, the great, the average, the mediocre, to hate me thoroughly. So Luther's confidence gained a boost. He credited his recent keenness of mind and pen to faith. By placing the Bible before tradition, he found reward in the grace he championed. Nobody, he admitted, could obey the laws of God perfectly, but by suffering, the despairing human might be driven to hope. This kind of teaching, right, really irritated the authorities. Yeah. So its anti-papal tendency also uh, actually it pleased the local prince because he protected him uh, from a summon to go to Rome to recant. Uh, Tormented by this the devil when uh, he had to report to the example of Dietz of Augsburg. Luther, he imagined that the adversary attack. Are you done? Are you alone wise with all the ages in error? A year after all these 95 theses? So he was anticipating excommunication. So for a while, right, the imperial interest delayed this Pope Leo's crackdown. So how this author he chronicles the debate between Luther and his all these long time sparring partners, the Johann Eck, right? Attention grew, and then the papacy start to accuse of the new dean of this heresy, and then and 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 John Huss burned at the stake for a century before. So Eck he edged on this Rome, right, to actually silence this false preacher. So as a hardliner, Eck went further than Luther's hesitant display to who preferred to entice him back down his lies and boasts. So by autumn 1520, news of this interdiction reached Saxony. His princely protector, Frederick Wotton, he received his threats from this St. Peter. So Rome ordered the Netherlands, the Dutch, right, to burn down Luther's writings. And a quarter of the student body at his university quit. When yeah. So turning to his native language, so Luther started to rally the native nobilities as his allies. He says that for the Pope eats the fruit, the Germans plays the pews. So um, this uh, suddenly the Bishop of Rome found himself called the Antichrist. Uh, uh, so and so faith becomes rather than the priest is how to make um, the sacraments really work. Um, the then the focus becomes how the Eucharist becomes a, a the God's gift to mankind. So of course, Harline tried to say that actually this kind of that is there's it's not unprecedented. By the time of Luther's, how he asserted it just bring it to a climax and like a showdown. Um, so by being absent from Rome already, Luther had to either recant his faith or he that means not his faith but yeah or face arrest. So Um, so he's pressured to produce an apology, right, to Leo. And there's a 50-page letter that asserts a Christian is a perfectly free lord of all, subject to none. A Christian is perfectly dutiful servant of all, subject to all. So, not any law by faith in the Son of God as passive trust that Christ would justify one if one let him and to see the whole of this uh, Luther's justification. Law provided needed restraint for sinful men. Uh, because God's righteousness effutes a believer, so that one can obey divine ruler by choice, not by obligation. So Heinlein tried to show that Luther lay his direct approach um, to as a preacher, and then how he gave us how his fellow friars shared with them across the empire, and how the knights like this message too, uh, and then um, because it interprets this warfare between God and the devil. So 2,000 people welcomed Luther into the Worms. By then the Holy Roman Empire Emperor, which is Charles V, he presided over the Diet. Uh, Catholic um, disciplinarians imply there's a very stubborn heretic, like almost wanting to start a revolution. So, but the technical difficulties make it very difficult to expel Luther, um, and and because the Germans, right, they prefer a fairer hearing. Uh, yeah. So there were violence along the way, and but this king Frederick, he allowed Luther to hold up in Wartburg, and until he's able to hide there lah. Um, so some followers lashed out with violence, but Luther, he didn't like this. He rejected the violence because but he asked that he actually promoted. Let's we can there's the renunciation of the monastic vows. So his conquerors, right, started to quit the priesthood. By the end of 1521, he has translated the New Testament, altering the key terms to suit his aims by using scripture so that the faithful could accept the promises of salvation. He arranged these biblical books to support his preference for the gospel. His teaching continued to inspire novelty. Back in Wittenberg, some leaders blame the how the fighting against old style priests on the students, and label that as ignorant Martinists. So the Christmas mass was altered. Um, the communion was taken in the hands of the Congregants who had not confessed or fasted in advance. So departing from this Augustinian, it sparked iconoclasm against the citizens. Authors and images, all that, right, was smashed up, and Catholics. So it made Luther return to because all these people become more radical than him when it comes to dismantling all these Catholic rituals and rites. So dressed as a red hooded knight, he and he was in March 1522 he arrived. In a new habit, he took the pulpit and restored order. For past few years that was quite in chaos. The peasants' war kind of like made a rapid it sort of catalyzed the revolution, right? Because there were more than 100,000 who died in the hands of knights and nobles until the year 1525. Um, so Luther, well, I guess this book, right? Why I find that this book is such a good book, right? Because at the after reading this very exciting, it's actually is uh, I find it very not just informative, but also it has a lot of um, sometimes I don't know whether is it too juicy, like maybe like not uh that wow, is it really so exciting one? Okay, but I think uh this particular author, Craig Harline, he gave a very detailed suggestion of. I'm not sure other books have this or not, but it's a very good primary and secondary sources for reading. Like if so, it has all the detail of update. So the last towards at the back of the book, right, the last chapter of it is a very detailed and updated list of articles of specific topic of interest, right? So it's I find that it's a very good read, because first of all I think I believe lah, yes, he's being a historian, um, he tried his best to stay as true to what he believes to be the most accurate of a glimpse into Luther's life during that few years. Okay, that's all.